mark in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon or evening, wherever you are on the planet. Hello, I am Brick Something, and I am finally starting the show about 11 minutes late. Sorry about that, folks. Some technical issues. Whoever it was that brought it up on the last stream I was on AWOC Talk, I think you might have jinxed it, if you believe in that kind of thing. But anyways, it was me. It wasn't Ted, our guest today. It was me. Something up with my StreamYard. But hello, and hello to you, sir. What's up? Imaginary Action, aka Ted.
Howdy. What's happening?
Oh, for a second, when you paused there, I was like, "Oh no, it's not working now again." But it's working. I can hear you.
We both have the black T-shirt thing going on today.
Yes, we do.
Two different genres of nerd.
Yes. Yeah. You got the priest. I've got the AWOC. I was just on AWOC Talk, Monkey Business over on Highly Articulated. And we were having some tech issues there. Jason from Spiro, you've seen some of his streams. Sometimes the internet isn't on his side in Louisiana. And so we had to deal with some of that. But we are here now. Okay, we are here today. I got to hang out with you and the family this week. I was down there and looking at your toys, and given what has been happening in the toy world, particularly the Snowcat, the G.I. classified series, Haslab Snowcat. What is it? Combat Arctic Terrain?
All terrain.
Probably all terrain. That was revealed last week. Was that just last? Yeah, last week. Yep. And between that and some of the other stuff that I've already talked about on this show, last week I brought up the Mezco, what is it called? Rumbler was in the conversation with the Latin Legions guys. And then a little bit before that and last week, we're talking about the Phalanx from Gridiron. It just seems like 112 vehicles are all the rage. And I'm hanging out at your place. I got to see your garage. You can kind of see it, your garage / hangar. And I don't mean his actual garage. That's not his garage, but his 112 garage / hangar in his home that is filled with glorious, beautiful 112 plastic vehicles.
Right. Because the real garage is filled with bicycles, a couple motorcycles, and all the boxes from Four Horsemen and Ramen Racers and all the things that I decided to keep for whatever reason. So all the good stuff is in this room. Yeah.
So you are basically a collector of a lot of these things, and I know you don't get everything. And for folks who've been following me, like I famously have said no to, like, if there was a vehicle or large item that I should be getting, like there's no real reason not to based on what I collect. Beathir, the dragon, right? I had both Trevor, 1/6 shooter, on here, actually laying and putting a lot of good healthy pressure for me to get that. And I told him size, space, all that kind of thing. And then Jeremy from the Four Horsemen was here talking about Beathir. And, part of me was like dying inside having to talk to him about this amazing thing he's got going on. And it's like, I just, in my brain, I can't make it fit. So I don't even get like the dragons, except for maybe smaller ones like the Cyberzoic. I don't collect the modern military type stuff, and you do, right? And so you haven't been shy about it. I know where you live. I know that your house isn't like that much larger than mine per se, but you're in it. You're one of those collectors who's like, I'm gonna get these giant vehicles. Yeah.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. I mean, you know me from just growing up together.
Yeah.
And I noticed, sorry, before I start in the chat, I can't seem to log on. So if there's questions I can answer out loud, I'll just answer them out loud versus in the chat.
Yeah, and we'll get to them. I'll bring them up.
Yeah. But there's an FYI if someone thinks I'm supposed to be like answering them.
No.
Yeah, but back in the day, right, when we were growing up, if people don't know this, I'm 5 years older than Brick. So I started off the toy trend in our household. I had a 5-year head start. But in that, I was always into vehicles. Like I had the old N.E.W.S collection of Batman. So of course I had a Batmobile. And I was always kind of fond of cars, everything from like the James Bond movies to like TV cars like Starsky and Hutch and their Gran Torino and all that kind of stuff. But then when you came along, and then in '82 when let's back up. The Star Wars collection came along. That was of course pretty revolutionary for toys in general, right? The fact that they got the figures down to that scale that they could start to sell manageable like vehicles en masse. So you and I had a great collection of Star Wars vehicles, and then later on G.I. Joe vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So now, they're bigger because the figures are bigger, and I don't know what the hell I'm going to do because I kind of out of room, but oh well.
Yeah. Well, so that's going to be, we'll come back and circle back to Snowcat and talk vehicles, because behind him, and he's got stuff to share and show, is his collection of those sort of military-ish 112 large figures. Vehicles. We'll get there, and then we'll kind of do some like news. There's a couple of small news items that I do want to cover and talk with you in particular about as our sort of collecting worlds are starting to merge, right? I was like, oh, let Ted get the G.I. Joe stuff, in the 21st century. I'm good. That was so 20th century, Brick. But then I started doing the fantasy stuff, the Motu stuff, the Mythic Legions, and I know you started getting into those as well. So I don't know how you're going to do it, but good luck, because you've got the stables now. You've got the dragon pens that you're going to need. You've got you need you have a planet eater, I think you need to handle, a giant man. You've got all sorts of stuff, a Razor Crest. So I don't know. I'll let that be your problem, but I know for me, it's when I get to go down and say hello, I get to hang out with those toys. So we'll get there. But first, let's go ahead and say hello to the folks who have joined us. And thank you, folks, for being patient with the tech stuff. Blake is here, Recon Rage, first in the chat. It's time to talk toys. Thank you for being patient, Blake. Appreciate you. Brian Carr is here and was on the previous stream over on Adam Highly Articulated's channel. And so he's rad. And I'm saying that here because he jumped right over here. Well, probably was doing simultaneous while when I said I had to jump off that stream. Lone Dragon is here. Ayo, working away. Back in the toy vault, sorting and purging boxes. Right on. You listen. You jump on the keyboard. You say your little off-color things here and there, and the world will be all good. Dave Orkin, hello, sir. Here we are. He says, Twizzler19 is here. Hello. E. McNeil, hello to you. Mr. Ryan Clark is here. Good to see you. Larry's Geeky World is here, saying hello to the toy people. Ray is saying hello to you directly, saying, hey, what's up, Brick and Ted? And, of course, the chat, because Ray's polite like that, all up in his suit. Alan, Vine Jungle Figure Factory, who I think you're familiar with. He's the dude who's building that big old Snake Mountain, basically in his gigantic garage, too. Yeah, I want you to, at some point, talk with this guy. And Alan, I need to get you on here too, man. We need to do some touring and share with the folks all the crazy things you've got going on. Chris Bouchard is here. Hello. Good to see you. Hello again. Yes. Brian Carr again is here. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the record. Rolando, Utah Toy Hunter. Good to see you, man. And your avatar. I missed it. Ray Black is here. Good to see you. As always, we've got Skew. What's going on, Skew Raider? We have Nolan. What's up? Hello, hello. Dave is into your guitars. Ted collects many things. Yes. So, and it was not your fault, Adam. It was technology, and I was still watching you guys continue while I was sorting it out. Glad Jason had enough internet for you guys to have a conversation after I left. Allison Troy. Ooh, Retro Toy Princess. Allison is who I was coloring with this morning. I colored this dude. Not the best paper, so the color wasn't nice and clear. But this
the Crayolas, crayons. What did you use?
No, they're Prismacolors. They're pencils, but the paper's just it's copy paper, so it's flat.
Oh.
Yeah, and shout out to Allison for gifting me those like last year. But hey, remember your drawing of this guy playing guitar?
Probably, yeah.
I think I still have it, or I had it and took a picture of it.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, those that for the time in the 70s, that was the best villain troops. The villain troops with the best hair. So
I was gonna say, if you're gonna say the best period, I was like, ooh, that's a big statement, because we loved AIM, we loved all those Hydra. Yeah. But yes, let's see who. Solo Sinner is here. Hello to you. Good to see you, Solo Sinner. Good to see you in the last show too, man. Appreciate you for all that support. Hey, we've got Kevin toying around. Hello, sir. Kevin will be the guest here in a couple weeks. Got to hang out with him, opening some fun Star Wars Japanese stuff a couple weeks ago. We've got I love how Brick is in a room full of vehicles asking someone else why. It's so funny that you say that, Alan, because as I was saying it, I looked at myself in the thing and noticed there's a bunch of vehicles on the wall. Thank you for picking up on that contradiction. I thought it too. Brian is already asking questions. Did Ted get the Rattler? If so, did it arrive yet?
Well, the answer is yes. It has arrived. I'm just trying to convince myself not to keep it, but I keep seeing pictures of the awesome Baroness figure, and it just makes me like, But then the plane itself is amazing. But
yeah, it is. I saw it. I saw the box. It was Brick style, sitting still in his box. It doesn't quite have the pile that I have, but yes, you're still on the fence.
I tell myself I'm on the fence. I don't know, because then honestly, then I thought it was good, and I'm jumping ahead. But we'll save it for the conversation about the snow cap. But it kind of ties into the snow cap. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back.
Can I answer Nolan's question here before you
Yeah, let's see.
So Nolan, I ride. No, what kind of bikes? No, so if he's asking motorcycles, I ride Triumph motorcycles. So there you go, Triumph.
There you go, Triumph. Let's see. The insult comic dog. Santos Rivera, what's going on? I'm going to say hello to everyone, whether I like it or not, because I learned from KJ Smith that that's what you do, although he reads every single chat. What's up, man? Good to see you. We've got, hey, Trevor, 1-6 shooter. Good to see you. I hope your ears weren't burning. I was talking about how you were putting polite pressure on me to get that bath here. Action figure girl, what's up, Steph Ork? It is the brothers. Good to see you. And let's see. What do you? She spies a sick split tail. I'm not sure. Is that in reference to the? It's in reference to one of the toys. Oh no, it's the. Is that a guitar? I don't know. Help me out, Steph. Mark R is here. Hello to you. Brian Brink is here. See, we start talking Haslab and he comes up. What's up, man? Brian Brink of the Charge. JMax77, good to see you again. And I think I am through to the chat. So, hello, everybody. Welcome. And I will acknowledge this because some quick bike talk. His brother was also into Triumph when he owned bikes. There you go. And there's this. That's what I thought. It was the Flying V, the split tail, other side. There you go. The thing is, Ted can't play guitar at all. So it's just for show. I'm kidding. Ted is an incredibly talented musician. Yes, and he can play every single one of those guitars quite well. Yes, and he's also, not only did he largely influence my trajectory to become a toy collector, also because of him, I ended up picking up the bass first, and messing around with instruments.
Don't listen to this guy. He plays instruments himself, so and was in a band, etc., etc. So,
yep. Oh, look, families and triumphs, man. Her dad used to rebuild Triumph bikes.
There you go.
All right. We are actually here to talk toys. I got to do another channel to talk music someday. That's got to happen, I swear. But we'll talk toys. We're going to look at a bunch of stuff. And on the bottom little banner that's taken across, if you're a visual person like myself, and I know Ted is as well, you want to see the stuff. You don't just want to hear about it. So using the QR code that's over on Ted's left shoulder, and that URL at the bottom, you can go to a doc that'll be live shortly after the show and look at everything. Follow the links. If I'm sending you to Instagram accounts, please consider following them. Check out those creators. Send them some love. That said, let's go ahead and actually start talking toys. And let's start actually with a line that I know you and I both actively collect and spend a crap ton of money on. Don't tell our significant others. Where is it? It is, why is StreamYard being my enemy? Here we go. Cobra the enemy. Fighting to say, oh, I know what I did. Okay. So we're small, and I'll fix that as we talk, because this was set up for a massive party last week. So if you didn't see it, go check out the stream with me and the Latin Legions guys. Had a great time. One of those guys went to the same high school that Ted and I did. So go check it out. Super fun. It was a party in here, though. There was 5 of us or some ridiculous amount. I'll fix that as we talk. Let's start with Mythic Legions, is what I was trying to say. You and I both collect Mythic Legions, spend tons of our hard-earned cash on these amazing action figures. But you and I were also both at G-Con this year. You and I did Legions Con for the first time at the same time, November 2024. And in that line, in that G-Con, they were celebrating their 10th year of Mythic Legions, their 25th year as a company. And they said, hey, we're going to announce a whole new Mythic Legions wave, but we're also going to announce a couple of some new toy lines, a book. The book is going to have a figure. I mean, they were just like, there's going to be a crap ton coming in 2025, 2026 and beyond. They weren't lying. There was this figure that comes with the Mythic Legions anniversary book, but also was sold as a separate figure. Did you go ahead and order any Silver Knight Legion Builder 2s?
Yes, of course I did. I mean, I'm not a knight guy per se, but it's kind of, it just, I don't know. I think so much happened, at that G-Con where you just get caught up in it, and it was just, you just buy, gotta.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. I'm going to have a Silver Knight soon.
Yeah, he looks really cool. And for me, it was, I do have a couple of knights that resemble him and have similar body parts, not the same, definitely not the same colorway. But what I don't have is that ridiculously awesome shield that he's got with the 4 Horsemen sort of 3D logo. And so it's one of those duh, of course I have to get him. The good news for folks is that he is on his way, or it is on its way. And it looks like it's being chased here from China. It's got some skeletons right behind it. So there you go. That's coming amidst all the other stuff that we're going to be getting. The book's going to come. This figure was solicited alongside the Mythic Legions First 10 Years book. And that's going to be sort of coming at a separate time. But the figures are already on their way to the port in China, then to the warehouse. So still up in the air when this will exactly show up, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to have that Valiant Knight build, so it'll move like the latest set of knights. It's got this gorgeous plume, all that stuff. And again, for me, it's crazy how we buy things. I buy figures for hey, that one accessory. I feel the need to own it and have it. So,
well, I actually have nostalgia for this kind of night in a way. I don't know if I told you this, but like our grandfather, or for the Filipinos out there, our lolo,
oh, right,
had a bar in their house, like, because that's what
Yes.
people in the 60s and the 70s had. And he had this awesome like statue of a knight that used to sit on top of there for whatever reason. I don't know if it was like held to walnuts or whatever crap. And it had that look, this type of armor.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of what it reminds me of.
Oh, that's hilarious! I totally remember that. He stood up straight up and like had
like a halberd
stick. Yeah, but that you could be removed.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I never thought about that. Shout out Lolo. Yes, so that's the first piece of news, and I know there are definitely some Legions fans up in the chat that are going to be all about this. But you know, first off, LegionsCon 2024 was his first as well. Solo Center this year. Let's make sure that we connect. I would love to see you and meet you face to face. Look at this. Twizzler 19 had to get a couple of those. See, I'm not alone in our disease. Let's see. And then 70 Action Figure Girl is saying, I missed the book and I'm having, wait, what? Really? I'm surprised. Dave,
can you still get the book? I mean, is it like, that's it?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be like there were the pre-orders. No, you can still get it. So maybe she'll still get it. I cannot believe that you didn't get it. But yes. And then hey, Blake is saying, oh, I guess most every cool house had a bar in the family room or basement family area.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. And so
yeah, there you go, taking notes. Lolo's grandpa. Look, Quip is asking, your grandfather was a knight, and actually, I'm not sure if he was. What was that Catholic thing? What was that Catholic?
Knights of Columbus. Come on, man. He was a Knight of Columbus, which basically means that he would leave his bar in Harbor City to probably meet with other Knights of Columbus at another bar and drink. But yes.
Right.
So I guess he was a Knight of Columbus sworn to protect the Pope. Kevin, on this note, I think it's hilarious. Yes, you keep taking your notes. He's trying to make peace with the Filipino community because of some slanderous things that were said about him and his show in relation to our people. And I want to let everybody know that beef is now squashed. Kevin is well-meaning and he loves the Filipino people. So there you go. He's even going to be speaking some Tagalog. The books will be available, yes, beyond the pre-order. Still available at BBTS. Yep, everyone's saying that, making it clear. Blake, are you getting flashbacks of your childhood with the Knights of Columbus, or just So there you go. You're good. You're good. You're good. You did not miss the boat. You did not miss the boat. And yes, Alan, this is incredibly cool. Taking care of business. There you go. So, all right, let's keep going. Because really, like the real deal news this week, of course, was this wave. Again, I was down in LA, so I didn't get to do the normal sort of like watch along stream that I've done with like Oz and Joe G and Ed Action Figs. But I was watching it, and then I presume you were pretending to work, and I was texting, or I was getting messages from you while you were again pretending to work, talking all about what you were seeing on the stream. Sorry, Disney. But I'm going to talk all about this wave in a little bit more detail with John from the Collecting Brothers, and that'll go up as a pre-recorded thing. Explain that later. But I want to, since you're here, get your reaction, because I know how you feel, but I want folks to kind of hear your take.
I feel really strong. I won't take too much time, but I feel really strongly about this wave, and I've just been thinking about it and internalizing it for a while. And I think here's why. And you know how you were doing that coloring page, and it had the Gatchaman, or for us in the United States, Battle of the Planets. That whole archetype of putting together an ensemble cast, right? It's like you had different types. You had the two handsome dudes, one bad guy, one bad boyish, one more Boy Scoutish. You had the wafy girl. You had the big, lovable, hunky guy, and then the little skinny kid, you know what I mean? That was made up
You're
that
right.
team. This,
Yes.
like, and then maybe think of the D&D cartoon from the 80s or 70s, whatever that was, right?
80s.
Same kind of ensemble. You have different body types, different, you can even look at Scooby-Doo to some degree. This is kind of like the Scooby-Doo of Legions, Mythic Legions waves, because you've got so many different, especially because you've got the smallest and the biggest happening all at the same time here. And honestly, last thing I'm going to say about it is, I love diversity. You know this. I love variety, all the things, whether it's my personal life, or my job, all the things. But if Legions were to launch like today, like if they had never existed, this would be the perfect wave for them to launch with, because it shows across the board what they got going. All the different scales for the most part. Now, not the giant, whatever those the giant guys are that they haven't made in a while. Ogre scale. But you've got
no, the troll, not the trolls. You're saying
troll scale, right? But you've got ogre scale plus ish, right? Because it's kind of a 3.0 kind of thing. And the other guy's at 3.0. The ogre guy is at 3.0. But you've got a bear as an animal, and then even across, like, you got male, you got female, you got anthropomorphic, you got little gnome guy, and you got little beard things. This pretty much, if for those of you who follow Mythic Legions, this kind of covers, as far as like a good variety of what they do, but with diversity, right?
Yeah.
Versus like a lot of 1.0 guys, or a couple 1.0s, and then a 2.0 something or other. This is all over the place, which is great. It's like the guitars behind me, right? You got like old school, new school, whatever,
No, I think you're the naming of the sort of Gatchaman archetype of that sort of template, if you will, of an ensemble, right? And is right on. It's funny, Alice and I were talking about that this morning. You've got different sizes. You've got villains, or questionable villains, really some gray area villains, like this guy who was accused because he was profiled. Same with the bear, was accused and was unjustly profiled as being the horror of Einsamal. Again, I'll talk more about that on a different stream. But no, like, you're 100% right with that. I will also, just to quickly say, that if this were the first wave of Mythic Legions, I hear you, this would be like super exciting, but that would be like a crazy wealthy indie company, because think of all the tooling. So but on that note, to think about like where they're at with in the life of the company and their sort of indie toy line making days, I guess, or career, to think that now we're even continuing to just get more sizes in the line. That's what excited me, seeing these, like the imp scale, these tiny little guys. It was just great. So I'm super into what's going on with this. I will definitely be ordering, but I probably have to wait, because we're traveling and I want to kind of come back and see how much I spend. But here is the shot that sort of shows the super team. We don't see the awesome commander in this, or the bear, but this is cool. It is totally the super team, and look at that, like the variety. It's incredible, and we're not the only ones who think this. Folks are all about it in the chat. We've got the first thing, like Brian jumps in, imp scale, which is awesome. And I'm gonna get back to the Pinoys up in here. I love it. Or the Pinoy love, because yes, he knows what's up. But yes, this wave looks so good, definitely getting doubles of the gnome and the fox. Now you go, Nolan. I'm in the same boat. Don't tell that I'm getting I'm gonna do the all in, and it's just a matter of which doubles to get. And I think I'm right there with Nolan, wanting maybe doubles of the small guys to have that body, but I don't know. We'll see. Chris Bouchard is definitely going to pre-order that wolf figure. That was exciting too, because we haven't had a wolf figure. And I don't know if KJ is still here, but KJ, I want you to notice the belt buckle and just sit on that belt buckle. He has some. He's just wondering what that belt buckle is. Don't worry about it. Skew Raider saying this wave is fire. He's loving all of this stuff, and I can't tell the photos. And 100 his favorites are the little dudes, the kegger, especially the food and the beer, Burger Time Forever, and all of that. So thank you, Skew. You struggled. Quip. Oh yeah, he has nothing to prove. It's all slander. He loves our people. Geeky World. Larry's Geeky World. I was thinking about getting the werewolf and both of the imp scale. Dude, that's like right there. You get the biggest one and these two little guys. Like this little thing, I gotta say, is like tokusatsu, like full on love. Like that's like a kid in a suit. Some people were wondering about like the head. I forget what chat it was, but someone was saying, yeah, maybe the head's a little too big. Oh, Saturday Day Live. Maybe it's a little too big. Would love for it to be scaled back a little. It was Eric LeBron saying it. And I totally get where he's coming from because he was talking about that sort of fuzz monk alt head. But there's something about that large head in this that I love the silhouette. I love it's a little bit on the cartoony side.
Makes him cute. Makes him cute.
Yeah, it's kawaii. It's
super
deformed. Yeah.
The other thing about it being that big is that it could probably sit well like on a 1.0 figure, right? If you wanted to mix and match.
Yeah.
If the peg fits, but I mean,
it's like on an armored body or something. Love that. Solo Sinner, this wave reveal was crazy. The Arctic Wolf and the homicidal wolf. Man, 70s on point with the ASCII art. Look at that. Polar Coke Bear, capital C, is ready for teaming up with Classified Polar Bear and the Cocaine Bear. Yeah, man, this is crazy stuff. Blake, wave with a bear, wolf, orc, fox, gnome, Viking, and a hot warrior girl. Yeah, I mean, what's not to love? Adam, who I know is very selective and intentional with which figures he ends up buying, and he's been collecting Legions much longer than I have. He was saying that this is like one of the first times when he's really tempted to go all in. Like every figure is that good. So there he goes. And yes, I am going to Japan, and I don't want anything cutting into my Gashapon budget. Brian saying, "Yep, instant all in." See, folks are loving it. This is great.
Let me say one more thing about this that I think really stood out for me. A lot of times, and I think we mentioned this over text, or I mentioned it over text, but a lot of times when they kind of bring up story and lore, Jeremy does the whole thing when they do these reveals, right? It's usually contextual, right? Here's the world, and what if this? When like almost answering questions with more questions, this, that.
Yep.
This is the first time I can recall where it was like a narrative like tale, right? And then he could have like walked us through this tale of events and then so this and that. And I actually got to say that really kind of got me even more excited for them because it was like a tale, a narrative of an event, right? And just that was great. That was great.
Yeah, you're right in that it feels maybe the most complete because they even sort of reveal who the horror is. There's a mystery, and there's telling like certain ones are accused of being the horror. All of that stuff. You're right. Yeah. The Ox Crew book 2 had a little bit of a story, but it's a little bit mysterious. We don't totally know all the different pieces. I feel like this, and I think as time goes on, my sense is, and that as Jeremy continues to be the person sort of actually writing down the lore and kind of getting it out of sort of Eric's head and other folks who are involved, that maybe we'll see a little bit more of that as we move through. I think it's also pretty important that they're moving into a new story arc, right? So anyway, if you want more on this wave, come back, check out future episode upcoming with Collecting Brothers, where we will definitely be talking about this, and check out their channel. They just put an awesome video together about the Einsamal. But let's shift to Savage Crucible. Savage Crucible Wave 2 in particular is what I want to talk about because those are starting to arrive. I got my box, still haven't unboxed it, even though I really intended to. But you and I were talking about this wave and sort of this wave in particular standing out a little bit differently and hitting us in particular differently than, say, even Wave 1 did. For folks who don't know, I backed this Kickstarter, and it says so right here. And I backed for figures from all three waves, and so I got a good amount of Lemurians, and I've enjoyed them for the most part. But I was telling Ted and other folks that I didn't quite like love them in the way that I was hoping to, not because they're bad figures or any of that. But it was something that I was sort of processing. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that sort of what Ted was speaking to earlier, and that part of it was that there wasn't a whole lot of dynamic range and difference between what was offered in that first wave. They were all Lemurians or maybe partial Lemurians like Como. And maybe there was a little bit of that. Even though they're beautiful, they definitely they have differences, like different colors, different armors, different heads. Like there's variety there, but there's something about that didn't quite hit me. And then you and I were talking about this new wave, and I know you were also it seemed like you were trying to figure out, what is it about this wave that hits me more? Like, where did you kind of finally land on that? What did you decide was sort of unique and special about wave 2 for Savage Crucible?
I think there's something, because they definitely went after a few more like on the nose kind of low hanging fruit tropes or characters, right? Your barbarian guy, your heroic dude, your villainous, questionably villainous person, your anthropomorphic wolf guy. In general, and just even the designs in some ways were more approachable, because like I look at Mythic Legions, right, as like, and I think I told you about this, like going to the bookstore as kids and looking at all those books by Del Rey and all of those fantasy publishers, right? That beautiful like hand painted art of like this sword and sorcery tales and all this kind of stuff. In my head, it was kind of like, that's the elevated subject matter. And that's kind of that's what this reminds me of, right? It's kind of like, to get into that fantasy, I got to read words, right? I don't have any pictures other than what's on the book, right? And I was a lazy ass reader. But to me, Savage Crucible in a way is more like accessible, like the comic book, right? Mm-hmm. So there's something about these designs, especially those wave 2 or wave 3 with whatever it is with the humans, that feel a little bit more wave 2, like archetypal characters, right? That are a little bit more accessible. And that's not a slight towards Mythic Legions at all, but they just seem more, again, a little more kind of on the nose and a little bit more accessible, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
It's interesting because I've been scrolling here on the Kickstarter through wave 1 and sort of showing folks who maybe aren't familiar what the Lemurians were and how they were sort of pitched back in what is this, February through April of 2023. Right. And so as you saw, like a lot of the sort of lizard body, and I know, so there were those, and then we started to get into like the accessories. But then to get to wave 2, to your point of, you're sort of thinking of Mythic Legions as sort of that, I don't know, like as you said, as a little bit sort of, I don't know what the word is without making it sound weirdly elite, but you saw it sort of like as this elevated is the word you used, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like kind of like, oh, that's fantasy and Mythic Legions. And that's also alluding to their beautiful sculpts and paints. Mm-hmm. But there's something about this that was, like you said, comic book. What is it about these that feel more like that accessible adventure kind of, oh, I'm going to flip on the TV and enjoy a cartoon or a comic book?
Well, whereas like Mythic looks whole, like here's Who Man guy, like whereas like Mythic Legions sort of like was basically, not basically, but like really going after almost like they had some historical references, even though it's all fantasy and this and that, with like a European knight, right?
Right.
And those types of things. These guys, if you look at their armor, this is really like fantasy. I think you'd be really hard pressed to sort of look back into like human history at least and kind of find any evidence of stuff that looked like this, versus this looks like it was built upon, like the designs look like they were built upon like, so many more, generations removed of fantasy and references versus what the folks at Four Horsemen are doing, which granted, they're doing a lot of fantastical things, 100%. Of course. Right.
Clearly love them. Yeah.
But there's a lot of, kind of like real references. Like what's the name of the gentleman that we were talking with that interned for a day, who's one of the painters there?
Cameron.
Cameron, right? And like he's
Mhm.
like some scholar, like a college
Yeah, he's
professor
a
on like medieval
historian. Yeah,
European weapons, right? So clear, and
yeah,
that kind of comes through in the Mythic Legions toys. Whereas
yeah.
this stuff is just it almost, it's like it finds that right balance of being like quality and great execution, but it doesn't necessarily have to feel like it's beholden to any kind of real world references. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Gotcha. So it's like, yeah, so this is definitely, I hear what you're saying now. Like the notion of the use of reference as a starting point, and we see that a lot in Mythic Legions, right? We're getting the Ninian infantries. Of course, we didn't necessarily see snake people in Earth history, regardless of what the conspiracy theorists say, but we did see their sort of headdresses that look very familiar, like Mexica stuff or
Right,
Aztec Mayan stuff.
right.
So this is, I hear you. You don't see a lot of folks with that kind of armor. There's definitely a lot more
No,
fantasy and imagination and
right.
comic book nature of it. And so let's take a look at the sort of figures as they've come out. So this is the Wave 2, their post that sort of shows all of them. And I totally see what you're saying in terms of it does feel very fantasy adventure comic take on, if you had, I guess, Roman gladiators leave and like this is the, I don't know, again, the imaginative version, I guess. It's weird to say that because I know this is not what you meant, because of course Mythic Legions is highly imaginative and takes all sorts of liberties, but there is a little bit more of a comic book pulpy vibe with these, I would say.
Right.
I hear that. It's funny, man. I'm sitting here looking at the box of these. I swear I'm going to open some of these tonight. But this character, so I was struggling with what is it about Wave 1 that I wasn't sort of as into, or I don't know. It just didn't bring me the same sort of immediate joy as now with Wave 2. And a lot of it is this. It's that there's more, I think there's more like unique character and personality in each of Wave 2, more so than Wave 1. Como is fantastic. He stands out from, say, what is it, the Imperial, I forget what he's called, but like there is some of that here. But I think in Wave 2 there's a lot more. Just flipping through these, like there's a lot more variety. Like there's more storytelling of maybe who this guy is versus who this guy is, versus who this guy is, right? So I think that's what I'm responding to as I see everybody's sort of photos of these and playing with them. And of course, like there is this very like, there are archetypes here, like this barbarian that really excites me. This is Krieger. I think he looks super cool. Like all of that kind of like, who is this guy? And I want to know his story and all of that. I will just say, maybe I'm, lizard racist. I don't know, but I want to know more about who this guy is than some of the Lemurians who, for the most part, maybe outside of Como, felt a little bit more like army builders.
Yeah, they felt more, again, like just kind of like more archetypal generic characters, where these guys look like this guy. There's like this guy looks like, all of them look like they have a story, right? Like, what's this dude's story, right?
Yep.
Where's he come from? Yeah,
like that Einsamal thing, right? Looking at those, you look at those and you're like, who is this character? Who's this gnome? Who was this frost ogre? Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I'm excited about these. This is me hyping myself up to open some figures later. And then let's see, who else are we looking at? Oh, and then so these are the accessories for the and on Nashorn, but the stuff is really cool. And if you like to play with all sorts of toys like Ted and I do, a lot of these parts are going to be compatible with Mythic Legions. Like these horns are going to be interchangeable with some of the sort of helmet adornments on your Mythic Legions. And this, I know you and I are in the same boat of trying to track this.
I got it. I got this.
You're
pack.
right.
I did.
You got the pack just for this head, right? We're kind of in that same boat trying to get that alt Jaeger head.
Yeah, for the most part. But that dude with the flaming batwing helmet, that's pretty metal. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's by definition metal. Cool stuff. Like all of this stuff and the interchangeable belt stuff, I'll give it to Savage Crucible. I really enjoy that level of sort of customizing and modularity. They look great. I'm excited about Wave 2. And as we sort of see more of this stuff, we're now that we're in Wave 2 and the line has been around for a little bit, we're getting not just these custom accessories to kind of build on our figures, but we're getting customizers doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is 2 figures from Wave 2 sitting in a beautiful boat created by Detour, Steph Delatour, Detour Customs. This thing is fantastic and kind of gets us a little bit closer to our conversation later today. This idea of 112 vehicles, right? Of like, and I just really love that we're in this time period where, you know, Harbinger Studios can create these dope figures that will absolutely work with someone like Steph, who's sculpting his own stuff, working in his little workshop, you know, sculpting, printing, painting, and then getting it out to people completely independent of the company. And of course, this kind of thing can work both with your Savage Crucible, your AWOC, your Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, and on and on and on. But what's really cool for Harbinger is like, look, man, people are taking pictures with, you know, these cool custom accessories, and they get stuff like this showing off the figures. I don't know if you caught this. You see this hook accessory that has like a ball peg for the heads, and there's a head there. But this is cool. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the whole, like, you know, simultaneous release of a wave, and then you get cool customizers doing vehicles like this? Are you in for like third-party vehicles too?
Heck yeah. Well, I've got a couple. Well, wait a minute.
I know the answer, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You know, when it's good, it's good. And I just checked, and it's still available, folks, on, you know, detourcustoms.com. So, and it's actually a pretty good price. But I think it's great. And I think what's great about these things, and I think what's great about Steven is he's really smart because he's creating things that can work with a lot of different, like, lines, you know? Like this would work. I could see Legions figures on these, and, you know, down the road when we finally, hopefully, fingers crossed, get our hands on the, oh my gosh, what was the other thing you got me into? Big muscly guys again.
Zezre?
Not Zezre.
Oh, Brutal Realm.
Brutal Realm, right?
Yep.
Brutal Realm will fit with a Zezre, will fit great with these. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what's really great about this. And I think this is what's really smart about him is he's making things like this that can be applied to so many, you know, all your toys, right? It's just, that looks amazing. So
check that out, man. That's Steph Delatour, detourcustoms.com. I dropped the links for those of us in here. Yeah, this thing is available currently for $100, custom made, independently made, sculpted, you know, designed the whole nine, painted, and that's what he's about. And so I agree with you, Nolan, and I agree with Ted that $100 US isn't that bad for what's. Yeah, I mean it's an artisanal, homegrown, locally sourced piece of plastic.
And I say this with a bias, obviously, but like, look, homie had to like sculpt this all in 3D software and take time, hours to do this. So let's not devalue that part of it. It's not just the 100%. Weight in plastic, right? It's like the time that the dude, and his brain, that went into this.
I love it. And I love that folks here are not only familiar, but we got folks like Twizzler19 who's actually ordered them. So good. As far as the rest of the Savage Crucible talk, Blake's calling me out. I appreciate it. No, I can check my biases. Don't be a Lemurian hater. Absolutely. I'm not a hater. I'm just saying I didn't quite get the joy and excitement of that wave one. I will say the feet kind of affected me a little bit as I struggled to do my turnarounds and like dude wouldn't stand up, but they fixed that and they're an awesome company for doing it. Again, beautiful sculpts, no issues there. Just, I shared my thoughts. Larry's Geeky World, love the guy in the hood, Jaeger, fantastic looking character. But yeah, and J-Mac, thank you for boiling it down to its essence, saying, Brick, shut up, get to the point. Essentially, we just get so many more options with Wave 2, and I think maybe that excited me. Like we get the werewolfy looking guy or the lichen-ish looking guy. We get the wild fantasy armor guy that's like, not necessarily just silver. He's got this cool like ombre, almost like it was like heat carbon scoring or something on his armor. Gorgeous stuff. So anyway, there you go. Yeah, Brian Brink is saying I enjoyed the Lumerians. I use them as Lizalfos for Link to Fight. Damn straight. Figma, Link, Tears of the Kingdom. I would argue so far is maybe my figure of the year right now. And if you want to hear from Cameron tonight, he's going to be on Shooting the Shelf, the Just Shelve It channel after. Nice. Perfect timing. No Chewing walked in. What's going on? We didn't notice you coming in late, but I'm pointing it out now because I'm like that. What's up, Chewy? All right. So Savage Crucible, boats. Sounds like this might be something you pick up to add to your hangar. Now, what do you call it? A dock? A mythic dock, a legendary dock. Maybe that's going to be happening at your house. But check out Detour Customs for sure. All sorts of good stuff. Just throw that out there. But let's talk vehicles. Because you, I know, as I pointed out, have a growing collection of 112 vehicles, several of which are Haslabs. You want to name check the Haslab vehicles you have?
So I have a Hiss tank.
Right, check.
I don't know what this looks like. I have a Hiss tank. It's pretty awesome. What else do I have? I have a Dragonfly back there, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
As far as are we talking just 112 vehicles or
Haslabs right now?
Well, what were there was just I did buy the Rattler, just haven't you've
got a box.
I haven't decided if it's going to stay in the hangar or the garage or not. And then I have that thing is just amazing and beautiful. So many smart things that they did with that. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. And it's like, you had the original of this, the one at the 3/4 of this. And it's just, I just got to say across the board, what I think Hasbro and gijoeclassified has gotten right is when they sort of take the original source material and they plus it. And they sort of some of the things that really bugged me, even with my limited knowledge of military vehicles and all that kind of crap, was just shortcuts taken, scale things and this and that. But, now it's they can kind of go all out, especially because, they're obviously targeting a smaller audience, but trying to capture that, the folks who would be willing to sort of spend what it takes to sort of produce these things. Right. But they don't have to kind of sell in quantities to a Walmart or a Target or back in the day, Toys R Us, right? They can be very specific. And so that's the give and take, right? These are very expensive toys, but in my opinion, you get what you pay for, especially in these vehicles, because they're look at this loadout. It doesn't even tell a story. Then you have lights and things, and it's just crazy. And then there's a bunch more there's two
it's
more.
Got lights.
It's got two more figures that came with
figures. Yeah, that's the thing with all of this. It's not just the vehicles, right? You're also getting vehicle specific figures and some other figures that sort of work with the little world. While you're doing that, let me bring this up because I finished up the Savage Crucible talk and forgot to circle back to this. Christopher Bouchard, thank you for the $5 super chat. Appreciate you. He says, I got the Human, Krieger, Nashorn, and both packs, and hope for that orange tiger with human plate armor and claw weapons. There's a bunch of things happening in that thing, and I appreciate you for packing it in. So what I got for Wave 2 was I got Krieger as well. He was actually the one that I was looking forward to the most. For some reason, when I saw his design, I was like, I want that dude. I skipped on Human and kind of want to circle back and get him. But I got Krieger. I got the Warrior with Ball and Chain. I skipped Nashorn, and again, I want to circle back and get him because they look great. But for me, it's Jaeger, Krieger, and Human with Ball and Chain, and that was it for Wave 2. But I'm definitely wanting to circle back and kind of get everything from the wave because I like those accessories. The Orange Tiger, he is referring to something in Animal Warriors of the Kingdom that was hidden on the Kickstarter update that I posted 2 Wednesdays ago. Was that? Yeah. And then when I posted some photos recently on my Instagram, parts of that might have been revealed. He's claiming it's an orange tiger. Could be. It is. But so check that out. But unfortunately, it's missing some things. You can't see everything. We'll get to that. And then a human blight and claw weapon. Yeah, man, you're going to get all sorts of cool parts in the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom stuff coming in, some weapons, some potential tiger parts. It's going to be a good time. Thanks again for the super chat. And then I will say that Blake again is just, is trying to drop some of this stuff, right? Kayo ang, go ahead.
Kayo ang pinakamahusay. Translated?
And that's because of this. This was, sorry, the first part was ang galing ninyo. Translate.
Ang galing ninyo. You guys are great.
You guys are good. Yeah, you guys are great.
Yep. Yeah.
And kayo ang...
Oh, kayo. Oh, the other one? Kayo
the rest of it, yeah.
Is that what he said?
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys are like the most, versed, or you guys are like the more, knowledgeable. Is that what that means?
Sure. It depends on the context.
Right.
If we're just talking about
I'm assuming it's about all this stuff, right?
Yes.
So I'm guessing that's what he meant. Yeah.
Or he could be talking about Benoist in general. But Quip is saying, yes, they've got that going on. Again, justice for Kevin. Justice for Kevin. He was slandered. Sorry, 796. Okay, back to vehicles. So you're not the only one who's sort of like humming and hawing on the Rattler. I know in your case, you have it. And now you're just trying to determine, do I open it? In Larry's case, he had to pass on the Rattler, so he'll probably end up passing on the Snowcat as well. So tell me about your sort of thoughts on it. Is it mainly because of space? Is that where you're at right now?
It's mainly because of space. I mean, honestly, I think that the thing that's friendly about, like, okay, I pulled down I pulled forward the Dragonfly. Just there's something. I mean, this is ridiculous, guys. It's big, right?
Yeah.
But there's something about this form factor when you kind of like look at it, like here, that's just a lot more manageable to stick on a shelf. And yeah, the Rattler does the thing where it folds up the wings and all that kind of good stuff. But just the form factor just isn't space friendly. Whereas that Snowcat, still debating, it's basically a rectangle box, right? So you can kind of shove that into a corner a little more easily. But that's got a lot going on. You really, I mean, the biggest thing I have to compare that to is, and you've seen it, is the Razor Crest.
The Razor Crest,
Mandalorian, right? But it's just like there's only so many like Razor Crests you can fit in your house, So it's
that
awesome.
Thing is beautiful, but yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my take on it. I was still debating it. I just love the figures. And of course the patches. I'm kidding. But
well, so I will say that so Ted does have a Razor Crest, but you don't have the Ghost. You don't have, so he doesn't get everything. He doesn't have the Ghost, didn't get the Cantina, didn't get the, what was the other one? The other the first one, the first Haslab.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. The sail barge.
Yeah. The Katana.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's like
so
amazing.
He doesn't get everything. So there is some level of selectivity. The Razor Crest, I knew, that was mind blowing to a lot of us when that first appeared. It was like, the idea of a Mandalorian back on the screen, and that ship in particular, the design of it was dope. So anyway, I hope you keep it, just because vehicle wise, like I like how they're deciding to sort of do the Cobra land vehicle, the Joe air vehicle, the Cobra air vehicle, and then now back to this. But I get it. But there's some tips though. Oh wait, not this one. I'll come back to it. But Chris only did the Transformers Lankheiser Combiner, which is really cool. Yeah,
right? That's a really big boy, that one.
And then where was this? if you don't keep the Rattler, you're gonna miss out on the wild
I
weasel and that
know.
awesome Baroness.
I know.
You're speaking his language, dude.
I know.
You're poking at the right spots there,
I
Ray.
know. I know. That's the problem.
So supposedly the Snowcat is going to be larger than the Hiss tank. How do you feel about the size of that Hiss tank? Because that's kind of what we're talking about today. Like how do people build the world? When you and I were getting the 3.75, there was some weird logical sense to the size of things, even though you and I know I still can't believe mom and dad got those things, but like the amount of those vehicles, even if we shoved them up on shelves or in the closet or whatever it was, there was a lot of them. And even though they were supposedly small, they end up taking as a collection a lot of space. But those are smaller. So now I still can't wrap my head around it because I'm not doing it. How do you I don't know. I just wonder if it's sustainable. I'll just put it out there. I actually do wonder how long Hasbro can continue to do this. At what point do they hit that wall and collectors are just like, man, I've already got a bunch. I'm done. Even you are saying, I'm not sure about keeping my Rattler. What do you think?
I mean, that's a real factor, right? I mean, space is a real, is a real thing. I'm looking around the room because, space is premium. And I think it just, at the end of the day, there's also, you can enjoy things and then sell them to somebody else who, might want to, if you're done with it,
Fair.
Whatever. But how long can Hasbro keep doing this? Who knows? I mean, there's always, and here's the thing, right? The thing about these is that they can keep doing this for as long as people have an appetite to buy it, right? Because they got it. What was the minimum? Was it 8,000? It hasn't quite reached there yet, but I think people, after many, many Haslabs, are just kind of like dragging their feet. I think it's probably it'll get there. But
it'll get there. Yeah. I tend to agree with Adam. Like Snowcat looks great. Sure, it will fun, but it doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi as the previous classified Haslabs. And that's the other piece of this one to my question of like, it's not just the size, but when it comes to the Joe line, everybody has their G.I. Joe, whether they started in the first wave or the second wave or later in the 90s. They have this, like as I listen to people, podcasters, toy tubers talk about it, they're like, oh man, my favorite was Battle Force 2000. I swear people have said that. Or, I love the original green fatigue guys. And so they have this thing. And at a certain point, you keep making these vehicles, you're going to get to a place where like, there are people who are like, and I've heard people say that about Snowcat. I didn't have a Snowcat. I don't really care for it. And I think that's part of this feeling of like the je ne sais quoi. Like I'm sure to someone, they're like, this is the vehicle I know and love. But to others, it's like a little less universal. So like how many more can they do? 3, 4? Like what are the others do you think are missing that might be Haslabable?
There's for the longest time I had the original of this as a kid, but the one I'm about to bring up is one that you had, which was very, very cool, which is is it the Dreadnought Thunder Machine?
Yeah. We hear a lot of people saying something about that.
Yeah, but people were kind of saying, well, that doesn't need to be a Haslab. That could be like, Vamp.
Like the Vamp. Yep.
Like
this guy. He doesn't just do Haslabs, folks.
Vamp
He's kind of
right. This has been heavily modified by a couple of guy on Etsy. But like this was just sold regularly, right? You could buy this through Pulse, and you could buy it through, I don't know if it was on Amazon or whatever. I don't remember. But people say like you could do a Dreadnought's Thunder Machine like in this proportions of plastic and weight, and not have it be a crowd-funded thing, right?
Yep.
So, but this is extra, right? This is just extra with quotes around it.
I mean, it's got like all the cooler, the cooler and the cup holders and that fun stuff. So I gotta say the modern 21st century G.I. Joe 112 is also doing some cool stuff in terms of the details. Obviously this team like knows and loves G.I. Joe, and I appreciate it as a G.I. Joe fan back in the day who's now not collecting them actively but just sort of watching it. I love all this kind of stuff too, like the the design decisions that are meant to sort of modernize it and
Yeah.
do some level of like thinking about how this might work in the real world.
Right.
So like
That's
this
it.
windshield.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's it. I mean, those are the kind of details that now that they can work at a bigger scale and add more details like that. And
Yeah.
you know, they can, and you know, whatever production is a lot more sophisticated too, I'm sure. They can get all that precision and all that kind of stuff that, yeah, why not make it more real world? You know, make it a
Sure.
little bit more believable. Like, this is ridiculous, right? But it's still fun. They didn't have to do this. But
Right.
it's just, it's like, oh, this is great. I mean, you can tell that these designers are having fun with it. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. Even in the like the figures, right, and their accessories,
Mhm.
which you know, with like the cups and the sort
Cool.
of coffee maker / espresso maker and
Well,
fun
actually,
stuff.
think about this for a second too. Like, we got, because you know, Trevor's here, 16 Shooters here.
Mhm.
Like, you just think about all the toy photographers, right? It's all about
Yep.
story. You know, a lot of these guys are telling stories, right?
Yep.
And think of that whole barbecue, whatever cookout thing is like, it's just another potential storytelling, you know, element. It's like, we kick ass, you know, kick Cobra's ass during the day, and then we, you know, crack open some beers and eat sausages at night, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, no, totally. It's absolutely, you know, made for storytelling. Even in this stuff, right? This alternate
Mhm.
kind of windshield for like the snow, and
Yeah.
it's some great stuff. It's hands down a fantastic toy, just like a lot of the stuff we're seeing now.
Mhm.
My question just remains, and it's totally out of just subjective ignorance, because I am not in the market for this. It's not what I'm getting. So I just wonder, not in a naysaying way, just kind of wonder like, oh, how far can it go? What else can you do? You know?
Yeah.
But I think ultimately the answer is what you've said. And, you know, folks like Brian Brink has said and sort of has proven here real quick with his ongoing
Yeah.
sort of coverage of this stuff, but through these charts over on the Geek Dad Life website, really just sort of like showing that, you know, what I love about these is it shows like the legacy of like the other campaigns. So you see the Rattler there in the blue, you see the His Tank in the black. And so clearly there's a market there of people like yourself who have no problem like buying these things and are just kind of seemingly like, hey, keep it coming. And you kind of see this natural curve, and this thing looks, you know, poised to do the typical thing, even though we're saying, yeah, I think people are waiting. There's a little bit of that, you know, kind of natural curve. It's maybe a little different. You know, I know people backed faster, but it seems like it's going to come this way and then shoot up around here, and that's well above the 8,000, right? So,
Yeah. Can I speak
Brian.
some? I just thought of something too.
Yeah,
Can I speak more to the now to the irrational about all these big vehicles? Right.
Yes.
Think about this for a minute, right? It's like, I remember as a kid, I think I had like one Tonka thing as a kid. It's like, when you're a kid, you're small, right? Everything's bigger to you, right?
Yeah.
So when you get like that big toy, it just feels it's kind of like this. I'm sure it's just like this moment as a kid. You're like, wow, look at this freaking thing. I'm holding it in my hand. I mean, for all of you who are out here, it's like, I'm sure people who had that same experience when they got their first Castle Grayskull, or for me when I got I had the Death Star playset. Like, are you kidding me? Look at the size of this thing. And you're small too, right? In a weird sort of like, irrational kind of way, there's something about being a grown adult. And I'm not a big guy, obviously, but like still being a grown ass adult and like holding this big chunk of plastic. Like, can I go?
Yeah. Here, visuals.
This is another one that I bought into, not a Haslab, but just there's something like holding this big
the ramen
thing in my hand that I don't know if you don't know this, but maybe you've heard the story, but our dad had a Dodge Charger.
We were just talking about it this weekend,
before you were born. And so there's something about like holding this freaking big, beautiful thing in my hand that kind of brings me back to being that little kid holding my little Mego Batmobile in my hand, right? It's kind of visceral. It's irrational, but it's just like there's something to that, I think, right?
No, 100%. There's like, we imprint, right? And I know you imprint like crazy because you've got these memories of like where you bought these things, but we're a kid, and that those somehow like it connects in our brain, and then fast forward there, you quickly get those good feelings just by hearing people like us talk about it or see pictures. The idea of actually being able to hold something in your hand that's sort of like maybe grown with you. Yeah,
Right.
I think these are kind of essentially the same size given our growth physically as when we were kids. So no, I totally get that. And I think at the end of the day, they're banking on that, right? They're banking on that, what you call irrationality, which it is, for us to go like, yeah, what, how much? A couple hundred? Sure. Here's that ramen racer. This thing is really cool. Like, and I actually love that you get this stuff because I can kind of check it out, but also like, I love that we're getting all these different types of toys that from a bunch of different makers. So in this case, Ramen doing this thing that like can switch out to be, you know, a General Lee or what was it initially supposed to be? Like what's his name? Danny's
Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
And then this stuff, man, this is my, speaking of Thunder Machine, like this is my, you know, Mad Max with just a couple of accessories. So cool. Curious from what you're seeing with the Hasbro builds, the stuff that you're getting with the Rattler, or I guess you haven't opened that, the Hiss and the Vamp even, or the Dragonfly. In terms of build quality, like what do you like? Do these things, are they neck and neck in terms of quality and like Ramen Racer and those?
Totally, 100%. They don't. I don't honestly. It's like, and I'm a tactile guy, right? They don't. It doesn't feel any different to me than like a Hasbro. And Ace is not paying me. I don't even know this Ace guy, but whatever. But
sure.
Like, I mean, look at the level of you know, just detail. This thing. I think even like the seats move back and forward. Look at that. That's crazy. Right.
Yeah.
So again, these things that they didn't have to do, but they did. And I just got to appreciate that. And like, you know, I'm a big fan of like, you know, the thing I built, right, has like, you can open up the hood and check out the motor. Cause, you know, we grew up in a family that, you know, fixed their own cars. And so that's part of our, you know, DNA. So like just being able to see that, I mean,
hell yeah. That's
crazy, you know? So no, I would say these are definitely on par, like the stuff that they're doing, or even like speaking of like non-Hasbro, and we were talking about this when you were here last week.
Yes, I love this thing. Like especially for the Transformers folks who are familiar with this company, Flame Toys, who does a bunch of third-party beautiful Transformers, right? They did this thing. What are they calling it?
I don't know. I call it the not a Skyhawk, but yeah.
Yes, I think I referenced it as something else. Flame Toys. I don't know. Someone can tell us if they know. But yeah, that thing is crazy.
I mean, even giving little things like, you know, doing that, right? You didn't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, that would have just been solid and painted silver. But again, I just feel like people who are making this stuff, these guys like Ace with Ramen Toys, they obviously, and I could be wrong, but they feel like these are guys who grew up playing with toys and had the original and sort of said, man, I wish it would just do that. I wish it could do this or do that, have that, just that extra something, right? Because I was even talking about like in this guy here, showing you how like, you know, like the little foot pedal things like compress, you know, like that. I mean, they didn't have to do this.
That was crazy. Like, and what that does is it actually, you can do all these really, again, to the photographers, you can do these really cool poses and stuff and dynamic sort of looks.
And I think
you don't have Duke in there anymore, but when we were there this week, you had Duke in there, and he looked super natural in there.
That's Duke.
Oh, he's in there. Sorry, he looked natural in there. I was going to say, like the way he's sitting, it doesn't look like I'm an awkward action figure trying to sit in there, but yeah.
So I think that, so, you know, it feels like Ace and all these other guys, and maybe even back to like, you know, Lenny and the G.I. Joe team. It's like now that we're the grown-ups in charge, we're going to do all those things that, that we wished our toys growing up did. And, you know, we get to make those decisions to, you know, make them do all the things that we wanted. So.
Oh, my bad. I was saying Flame Toys, who does Transformer stuff. Fans Hobby, this
There
thing.
you go.
It's the VE01. So I don't blame you for not remembering and calling it, for some reason, confusing it with the G.I. Joe Skyhawk. I love that part of it too. Somehow what you've got there, you did something naughty, which is build it a particular way so it looks like a Skyhawk. But to be clear, Fans Hobby did this. It's completely legally distinct, I guess, from the Skyhawk. It's got much wider wingspan. What did you do to make yours look so Joe-like?
So, fun fact is, when they first solicited this was the configuration they solicited. So they probably got a very nasty cease and desist letter from the good people at Hasbro in Rhode Island, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, said like, "Hey, no puedo." So what they did was they added those extra pieces that you see there, right? No puede. So what I did was just kind of figure out like, okay, it's clearly like out there that you should be able to manipulate this to bring it back to like the classic configuration. So just a little bit of sleuthing, there probably were instructions out there in the internet, but I could figure out like how to kind of like, because this comes unassembled, right? So if you have the whole pieces in your hand, you can kind of just start to put them where you want them to go versus where they show they go. And it was, the hardest part really was, having to bust out a screwdriver to disassemble something and reassemble something else in it. But that's pretty much,
I love that. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Actually, so when I'm looking at it here, compared to yours, wait, don't put it down. This is pretty plain. Yours has all sorts of decals. So maybe that's one of the harder things too for, and not necessarily you, because I know you've always been real good at it, but other folks struggle with this. But what you showed me that, and you made the same comment, like it's very vintage Joe, Real American Hero vehicle kind of stuff on there. The decals, like even the font choices for like the caution stuff.
Yeah, all these little like,
really
rescue,
good.
like but the thing is, the other thing is, I was talking earlier about that experience of being a kid, right, and holding that big plastic toy in your hand, and it was just like it leaves an imprint. Putting these stickers on, man, that was like the experience, right? For me as a kid, right? And just trying to get it right. And some things just don't sit right because they're stupid stickers and decals, right? But like you can see it bubbling up there. But it did bring me back to that feeling of like putting these toys together in the 80s and like, putting the stickers on there, etc. So
I didn't ask you this. They didn't do like blueprint instructions, did they?
No. They should have.
God, that was killer back in the day.
Yeah,
loved it. So this is cool. And again, $87 for this thing is not a bad price for what you get. And I've seen it, and I'm kind of intrigued by the quality of these things. You're making that sound and kind of like that ratchet, and that's what Alan was pointing out. He loves that ratchet sound. It's like there's a vibe of like quality, and it's they build in those things to keep it from getting loose and stuff.
Well, I got to say one more thing. It's referring to the Ramen Racer and that whatever VE01 Eagle thing.
Yep.
Not a Skyhawk. They all have lights and things, and even the Ramen Racer lights and sounds. So it's like, I mean, these are things we remember that crappy like sound for those of you who are old enough. It had that original X-wing from 1978. And you held the button down, and there's like a little red light that comes on, and it made like this little sound. And that was the best thing it could do,
Yeah, it wasn't Lucasfilm approved. It wasn't ILM.
No. So
yeah. What's going on, Zio? You were telling stories earlier about vehicles, and now Brian is like, I got to get my Tonka vehicles out now. Hey, Mac, what's up, man? Appreciating your Judas Priest shirt. The Ramen Toys love is definitely here. This is Alan, and I totally get this. He's saying, I buy a lot of toys that I couldn't have when I was a kid. We were pretty poor, and now I'm doing okay. So yeah, a lot of this is now weak as people in our toy life crisis, midlife crisis, have some some income, right? Surplus income, and are saying, hey, I want to buy things that give me joy, which I think at the end of the day is my answer to my question earlier about like, how long does this last? And I think it's as long as like people are enjoying it and they're making things that people enjoy. And which continues to trip me out is sort of a kind of what Adam was talking about here. He's saying I held off on the not Skyhawk because I'm sure Hasbro will make an actual Skyhawk and he'll buy two. Is it when, you know, not only are folks like Hasbro making stuff now, but stuff like Steph Delator making, like, there's all sorts of different options. And in those options are these both hungry and creative and talented either individuals or small companies who sometimes will take risks and do things that the company like Hasbro won't do. That said, I mean, in fairness, we saw that thing. They're definitely taking risks and doing some fun stuff, right, in their designs. But it's just crazy to me that we don't have to just be completely dependent and beholden to Hasbro.
No. Well, to your point, your question again about like how far can this go? How long can this keep going on? Right.
Yep.
I think what it comes down to it is, I don't think it's a necessary, you know, I said space is a real issue, but the way they keep getting me hooked, at least, and I'll go back to this latest horror of, I don't know the name, but the latest wave of Mythic Legions, horror of what?
Einsamal.
Yep. Right. It's like, they're giving us something different. It's like, ooh, I haven't seen that before. So it's like, I think, you know, again, it's like going, you know, fast forward to Haslab. It's kind of like, oh, that's something. Like when the Rattler came, like an airplane. Wow, we didn't have that before, right? So I think that's part of it, right? If they just kept giving me more tanks, or if they just kept giving me more ogre scale, it just becomes more variations on a thing. But then if you're giving me something unique, like going back to Delator's boat, it's just like, that's the first time I've seen a boat. You know what I mean? That's cool. You know, that sort of lives in that world. So maybe that's the trick. Maybe, you know, people will have an appetite for this. So as long as you're sort of like feeding, you know, their curiosity, that's, you know, and not just sort of like giving them more of the same. And I will say, you know, a lot of give credit where credit is due with Mythic Legions, you know, going on. And I think this is all related. If you look back at where they started, right, and you started with them before I did, it's like a lot of people said, like, oh, man, I'm really into the elves. I'm really into the vampires. They could have just kept pumping out more elves and vampires and all these kinds of things. But they keep trying new things. And they're smart enough, I guess, the new things that they kind of bring to the table are interesting enough. Are kind of like, ooh, getting me hooked, like the Ninian, the snake guys that we got last year. You know what I mean? They're just kind of they're dropping in little nuggets of new things. So, you know, again, when a snowcat comes along, it's like, oh, I don't have that.
You must whip it. Sorry. Yes. No, it's true. It's true. And so, I mean, I know we started with the Joe stuff, and I'll come back to the Joe stuff in a second. We kind of took our little detour with the Ramen Racer. But there was this that came up recently too. And so I haven't quite seen like all the official stuff on it, but this is from Toy Migos and Lago Figs doing some screen caps of this video by, I'm forgetting, Happy Pursuits, of a Mezco thing. And I know you started getting into Mezco. I got to enjoy your little like old school Silver Age, I guess. Popeye and the Shadow, and who else was in that? Dick Tracy.
Well, Shazam, but he's not a Mezco, but he's definitely like in that world.
Oh, he's Mezco scale, man.
Yeah.
But like, so Mezco's now gonna do another vehicle, like again, that could work with your classified, at least side by side. They may not fit in them because Mezcos tend to be a little smaller.
Yeah.
But you know, the Rumble Society is like getting in on the action, right? Where they get their own like big old vehicle. Not the first Mezco vehicle, right? They did a mech. They've done like smaller vehicles, like for Captain Nemo. He's got that little like thing that he rides. Yeah. And then they've kind of teased the Doc Knock car.
Right.
So we know, they're willing to make them. This was kind of a neat thing. I think some folks have been kind of like, by the way, special guest star here, Yimbo, the pilot. This is the figure that you get with the Snowcat. That's this guy.
Oh, cool.
But not really. But I don't know. I just think it's kind of interesting that there's all these different options for like these armored cars. What is the Valiverse one too? I forget what that was called.
Yeah. It's like based on a real world armored SUV. I don't know what it's called, but yeah.
Yeah. But there's a ton of options. I think this thing is cool if you're a Mezco collector and looking for like, your guys to maybe go up against a Vamp or some other vehicle. I don't think you're not in the market for something like this, right? Not your
Well,
bag.
I made first off, I made my own, which I like mine better, but but
You know what? So fair enough. Keep going. Let's pause that real quick. Actually,
okay.
well, let me
But
hear.
this,
We'll get back to that. Let's talk about this. Yeah.
well, it is a scale thing for me, right? It feels very small, and there is this kind of, again, this is funny because it's very, to me, it's very specific, right? It feels like it came out of like one of those early Avengers movies, and it kind of
totally.
feels right. Feels kind of like it's a shield vehicle of some kind, or or whatever, or whoever's trying to kill it, or a Hydra vehicle, and it's cool. But again, it's kind of now. Remember what I was saying earlier about like keep enticing me with things I haven't seen before. This feels like it's now on the heels of things that have come out. Like I feel like we've already kind of seen, and it's just like it's kind of hard for me in my brain, to kind of stand out in the crowd. It's got cool things. It does a lot of great things, and I love a lot of what Mezco does for sure. But just this is a vehicle. It feels a little small. It feels, again, I don't know. Like when I see like the bread van that Ramen Racer did, I mean that Ramen Toys did, or even the Ramen Racer, it's kind of like I go to like a specific kind of like nostalgia point. And I kind of say, okay, great. I'm going to pause myself here because the one thing where this place like totally
I knew it. Yeah, right when this came up, I was like, oh crap,
is amazing. Because it's got all
I knew
of
this would interrupt your flow, not intentionally, but the second I saw it, I was like, oh crap, I just ruined his flow.
The puns of this thing are fantastic. But I just think as a toy, it feels a little, and again, no offense toward Mezco toys, because I own far too many Mezco toys that I ever thought I would, right? But it feels a little generic. It doesn't feel like, okay, I don't know who this belongs to. Whereas, again, it's cool, it's there, but you pointed out as I've sort of like done my sleuthing, it is a little small for my G.I. Joe classified figures and all those types of things. So
now that you say that, I wonder, like, so let's take a look at the characters real quick that they have on here. They've got this guy, they've got these guys, have not been made yet, but clearly might be coming out in Rumble Society. Like, I wonder if they went maybe a little more fantastic with it. Like that car for Doc Knock is clearly like that's a Doc Knock car, and it's unique. It's standing out from the rest of the stuff. Yeah, I hear you, because I do see this. I see this that got brought up earlier, and I do want to sort of show it because I think this Valaverse thing, it's a feat, right? They definitely accomplished a thing by creating this thing for their line, in licensing it from the actual manufacturer of the car, and then being able to do all this sort of like customizability with the different turrets and stuff. I think that's all awesome. Like it's a huge accomplishment. I get that maybe in light of that and everything that Hasbro has done, that maybe this feels a little bit, I don't know, like a path that we've gone down maybe a little for folks.
Yeah, and maybe even a little. I'll throw Ramen Toys in the mix too, right? By the time this comes in, they'll have accomplished like versions of the Ramen Racer, versions of that bread box van, right?
Yep.
It just, again, it doesn't jump out, and then that Vanguard vehicle. There's a lot already kind of like in this space, right? And I don't know what this is bringing to the table that's new. So
yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, there's that. And then there's this. Let's get back to the military stuff. But let's actually start by talking. I know I've shown it here, but I know you've got it sort of accessible. Could we see your, what you call the Vamp Mark 6, or is that too hard to handle?
No, it's all good. It's all packed up over here. So, this is the one that I built.
Hell yeah.
Right. So
I love this thing.
So this is all, for those of y'all who don't know, this is like, I built this over a couple of years. It's scratch built out of mostly polystyrene lights. And it's got some things that are kind of like off the shelf, like these tires or RC tires that I bought. And then this,
Love it.
you know, this little metal winch. But then like this little gun that I made, I didn't make the gun itself, but this is from a Gunpla, Bandai Gunpla thing. And what's cool about it is you can wind it up and it turns. Well, anyway, that's gonna.
Yeah, that's right up there with that. With those X-wing and Millennium Falcon noises back in the day.
Right. But okay, so that all said, so that I clearly have a point of view about that Mezco thing that most people won't have, because it's kind of like, well, I don't know, I kind of like what I did better, and then, you know, whatever. It's just to teach their own.
Yeah, and I like what you did for a bunch of reasons, and other people do, is what Brian's saying. Like, damn, amazing job. And I know folks have seen this before, and I want people to check it out, man, because it blew me away. And this isn't the only thing he's made. He's done motorcycles for Major Blood and stuff, and I'll drop the link in the chat, and it'll be in the document. But yeah, so you go ahead, and I'll solo you.
These are the things. So okay, this is going back to what I was saying about Ace and maybe Lenny from the Hasbro Joe team. They're doing things now that, you know, the toys that they had growing up, you wish it could do that. You wish it had that. Right? It's like this, because I started from scratch. It's just like, well, I wish I had this. What could it do? You know, blah, blah, blah. And kind of like, this is, you know, kind of answers that. And I even like, but this is very like this whole thing, like you're loading out, like this is the top of it. And there's like ammo inside here. So we're going to open it with one hand, right? These are the kind of things that I was inspired by with our toys, right? Like G.I. Joe sort of like scratched the surface of it, but you maybe couldn't, like, you could pull a panel off, but you couldn't pull out what was in it, etc. Right. Same here. And you could, you know, could load in these missile launchers, you know, if you wanted to and whatnot. But
this is all before Ted had a printer, which he does have now, and he's messing with sort of printing custom stuff. But this was all, like you said, scratch built, or like finding different bits from other toys. That sound Brian's pointing out totally reminds him of Starcom. I remember.
Yeah, like the lens. Yeah, speaking of, so like the lenses for the front headlights, which do light up, but okay, turn on. Those are those Lego doors. You know, those clear Lego doors with like the lines on them, and these rear lights are the same. Like you can't see them, like the little red and yellow in there. Those are Lego pieces as well. So yeah, it's all a bunch of, like, you know, things that you find. Then some things
love it
from scratch. But anyway, and you can fit guys in there. You're going to see.
Oh yeah. So you showed. Yeah. So, what were you talking about? You were mentioning how they sort of removed the steering wheel. There was some.
So you can remove the steering wheel in here just to kind of get the guy in there. And I think that's what toy line just showed that. Was it I forget who did it. I said, yeah, that's super. Oh, it was the Gridiron Phalanx that does this. You can get the driver in there. So I did the same thing here, because to get the guy in there, it's much easier to put the steering wheel in after. But like, yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, Blake is saying, wow, Ted, that's awesome. Nice work. Yeah, I'm curious. I would love for you to check out the photos, man, as a military man with some direct experience with stuff. Just kind of curious, because you'll see Ted built in a lot of cool little like details and stuff in that thing. Let me get us back here. And here's one of several posts that sort of highlights a lot of sort of the details. I'll leave that on as we talk. And then Alan saying, you got some skills. Alan, from one maker to another, man, this guy's got skills too. And you two should definitely talk. Stanley's Toy Room, into it as well. What's up, man? Thank you for joining the channel. Look at that. That's that little wind up action. You said that's a Gunpla?
Gundam thing for the Gundam guys. Yeah, and then I just added all the other bits onto it. Right. Hey, one thing while you're talking about one toy maker to another, one opportunity I've never had before this, I just thought about it. One of the guys that really inspired me is a YouTuber, and I think he's local, like here in LA, because we go to the same hobby store because I've seen videos of him.
Oh yeah.
But his name is Toy Gigante. So Gigante.
Yes. He did a hiss, right? A hiss tank.
Gigante. Yes, he did a bunch of things. But like that guy's work, even before the hiss, like totally inspired me. And like, because she will walk through like just working with, the the styrene plastic and this and the little rivets that I stuck on this thing, they're pre-made. And I got that idea from him. So check out Toy Gigante if you can. He's on YouTube. But that guy, he does amazing work, and he really, really inspired me.
Dope. No, I think that's great, and I appreciate that because I love to send people to stuff. Anyway, we've talked about it. I think it's great. Folks should check it out. And just, I've kind of shared it a little bit, but there's all sorts of cool custom figures that Ted's done, including some Legion stuff. And then I love the Predator team and everything you've done, but I'm still super into your Major Blood motorcycle, which is here somewhere. Hey, look at Dutch. There it is.
It's over here.
I forgot to ask you about that.
Yeah, there you go.
Was that there the other day? I guess I just didn't even see it.
Yeah, it was just bottom shelf. Yeah.
So
this is it's a Punisher motorcycle, little V-twin, and this was the first thing I did with like scratch building, working with styrene, etc.
Yep.
But fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. All the little details that you put into it, and I'm sure this gives you that much more of an appreciation of what Hasbro and Flame Toys and Ramen and Vala, all these guys are doing. But on that note, if you saw some stuff in Ted's feed on his Instagram, there was quite a few gridiron pieces. And so that's the other piece of this is like gridiron started by, making accessories and weapons and stuff that were compatible with classified. Then they moved into developing parts that attach to existing Hasbro vehicles, that trouble bubble. And you got some of that, dude. Yep. That was super impressive. When I saw those at your place, I'll see if I can quickly find them here, but I know it's a ways back on they've got cool stuff, man. A lot of this stuff, like they're building like little drones and stuff.
This guy.
But going back to the trouble bubble, that guy. What do they call that thing?
I don't know.
Don't worry about it. I'll find it.
Yeah,
that thing is incredibly cool. And again, here it is. They're building it off of the existing trouble bubble, and then even including pieces like this. I love this because it gave me that snake armor itch when this came out from Gridiron. What surprised me, and you told me this before I got to play with it, that like the feel of these things, it's all 3D printed. I think mostly filament, right? Filament printed, but the quality is fantastic, and the way that it sort of snaps on and integrates seemingly seamlessly. Wow, I just did that. With the trouble bubble is super cool.
Well, it's super, again, just really smart people doing smart things. And like I said, they're just kind of complementing what the big boys are making, but maybe making something that quote unquote the big boys, big girls, maybe in their minds, like their pro formas and their marketing, their research shows like, you could do it, but we don't think we'd be able to sell it. The price point we need to sell it at to make the profit.
Right.
So, in comes somebody else to kind of like fill the gap. Right. It's like, okay.
We haven't even really talked about cost. And I want to acknowledge that not everybody's in a position to buy this stuff because it's pricey, including the Haslabs. But, we're talking about Haslabs, and I didn't include it for a number of reasons, but part of this is like part of the equation of like how long can it last is like how long are not just people willing to give up the shelf space and find the pieces that are nostalgic for them, but also the cost. These things aren't cheap, right? They're a couple $100 for that. The Snowcat is what, like three or more?
Yeah. It's like the Snowcat, I think, was like $325 or something.
Yeah, and then you've got Gridiron, these people creating this stuff, but again, it's not the cheapest stuff at all. $50 for the pieces to connect to that existing is not cheap in the sense of like affordability, but in terms of value, like we've said a number of times, the value's there. I saw all the work just by looking at it and handling what you had there. Also, you have one of these like sort of turret mech things, don't you?
Yeah,
that's like kind of all original Gridiron that they're putting together. So some of those same pieces that you would use. Yeah. And so these are
I mean,
some of these are the same pieces that connect to the trouble bubble, but
right.
their own unique stuff, all, making these unique mechs and drones. That is killer.
Well, and they're obviously like, appealing to guys like you and me and many others who like grew up '80s
Yep.
watching Robotech or slash
Yep.
Macross and all those types of things, and whatever. It's just like you're just hitting on all those sort of nostalgia notes, and here we are.
And this is something I just found, if I'm looking at this correctly. Not only is it like these pieces that were for that trouble bubble mech thing, and then there's like the drone things, but isn't this the same one that you have, the jetpack?
It probably is the base part. I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like they took their old existing gridiron stuff and are integrating it further into their new stuff, which is so cool. And this is the kind of stuff that as a kid, I love the weird little G.I. Joe kits that were just like, oh, kind of world building. They were like, a raft or, but so cool.
Well,
so gridiron.
Yeah. Here's the thing, right? It's kind of like, even, when we were kids growing up, 70s, 80s, 90s toys, they're mass marketing. They're targeting a certain age group, et cetera, et cetera. So in some ways that kind of limits the Kenners and the Hasbros and the whomever, the Migos back in the day, to sort of like only taking it so far, right? Because at some point they can't make all of these things or to all this detail, because they're just probably they're going to probably, like you said, like kill their audience. It's just oversaturate, right?
Yeah.
And what's amazing about guys like Gridiron Studios, because they 3D print, right? You asked this question the other day. It's like, oh, I wonder how much they're making. It's like, they're just going to make what people buy because they have these machines now that can just sort of like make whatever there is. And so in some ways, they're not really limited by they're not having to like guess the market and sort of like make enough, produce enough. It's they're just meeting demand up to, as close to what demand there actually is. And when there's no more demand, okay, we're done. There's no tooling here. There's an investment in creating these 3D models and all those types of things. But so they can take risks, right? They can do crazy things like this. And then when they're done, when people are sick of it, then that's okay. Then they're sick of it,
That's true. Like they're not investing in tooling in the same way or working with a factory overseas and having to deal with its ship and of course tariffs as that comes up. This is all done on their presumably large farm of 3D printers, right? And kind of on demand. It's so like, oh, we got a sale. Okay, well, let's produce them, and they can produce them as they come in. It's like a short run print on demand kind of thing, which is kind of cool. You're right. That at the end of the day, they make as many as the market will bear, and that's all they need to do. They don't need to do more, which is kind of crazy. And I also wonder how long they're going to keep doing it, because at the end of the day, you don't have to discontinue these, right? And like other stuff. What are you gonna say?
Well, I wonder. I mean, I guess it just comes down to like how many people have enough money to the pool of people out there who have enough money and appetite and desire to own these things. But the other thing is thinking about it some more. Like, remember when we were growing up with all those toys, the Star Wars, the G.I. Joes, the Transformers, the Masters of the Universe, all the things. There was a lot of this, like, all of those companies, Playmates, sort of chasing after each other's, like, plate of food, right? Kenner's doing this Star Wars thing, so Mego's got to do a Buck Rogers. What do we got that can compete with it? Mattel's got to do a Battlestar Galactica thing. Okay, what license? And there's like they're trying to. I think what's interesting about the marketplace and the industry now today is like, you could say like, oh well, there's Mythic Legions. Oh well, Savage Crucible, they're just doing they're riding that wave. It's like, they kind of are, but I would argue, and going back to what we're saying, that they're doing it in their own way, right? And they're checking a box, they're like filling a gap that maybe Mythic says like, well, we don't want to go there. That's not what we do, right? And so what's awesome about all these options today, like it's same with perfect example is Ramen Toy, right? It's like that Ghost Rider, Dodge Charger, that Hell Charger was originally supposed to be it was a
Haslab.
It was a Haslab that failed, right?
But
clearly, Ace at Ramen Toy says, but apparently there's enough people who wanted this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. And he sold it, right? That's probably not something that a publicly traded company like a Hasbro can just go ahead and do.
They
So,
won't. Yeah.
so that is something I think that is really interesting about today's toy industry, where you can have all these smaller companies sort of fill in the gaps for those demands of these things that,
Absolutely.
maybe it's not millions of people want the thing, but hey, we can make a business of, selling it to thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and to Blake's point, he buys a lot of Gridiron Studios. It's a family-run company. Mark and his family are killing it. I love supporting small companies like this. Absolutely.
There you go.
And then Skew saying this phalanx might be a good Warthog classified stand-in if we never get a Haslab or standard one. Absolutely. Could be a stand-in. It could be, hey, additional like vehicle in the G.I. Joe stable. Like it is just that cool. Or the Cobra. Like if I were in on this, I'm actually really into this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm carrying this bad villain energy these days, but yeah, it's cool. I just think it's such a neat fantasy kind of thing. Does it have lights as well? Is that built in, or is that something
it
you add?
It has that single light, like cabin light, that red light in there. Yeah.
That's so cool.
And it's actually really smart what they did, because like I'm kind of, my thing's, look, I'm not putting myself down as being self-deprecating, but mine is a total hack, right? These are actual professionals, and I say that it's professionals because they're trying to make a living doing this or whatever. So that's the difference, right? But where they're smart, Like the little LED light that does that is, you can tell it's just some off-the-shelf thing that you could probably find for yourself on Amazon. But they just said, hey, we're super smart. Why are we going to go manufacture this thing bespoke? Let's just integrate it into our design and just let it be what it is, and let it add to this cool thing. So
and clearly, like collectors like Skew end up really appreciating it.
Yeah.
Brian was bringing up the Havoc earlier, like Brian Brink was saying, man, I want that Havoc. And it's funny, it's kind of to my point earlier, like we all have our different sort of touchstones vehicles, right? Or our time with G.I. Joe. But he's saying, hey, if it never comes out, he'll get the Phalanx. And again, you might be able to get that like years down the road, because it's not going to cost Gridiron anything to just, open up those files and print it when Brian's ready to order it. But like that Havoc felt like I enjoyed it. That was one of my favorite vehicles. But that came a little later down the road. And I don't know how many others are like super into and waiting for that vehicle. It was definitely a fun, almost like sci-fi. The yellow and black one, a couple of folks, yellow purple Parasite version. Man, I mean, for Gridiron, isn't it just a matter of getting the filament?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? It's just putting in a different filament color. Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Did you get the black and yellow version? I think that was for
I did not. I think you're talking about the Skyhawk. The Skyhawk. I did not.
They did an exclusive.
Yeah. Now that looks super fun too. Or the Tiger Hawk. Sorry, the Tiger Hawk. Yeah, no, Tiger. What do they call them?
Tiger Force.
Tiger Force version. No,
that was after us. You and I never got into that.
Yeah, we're pretty traditional. Like Cobra is black and blue, and G.I. Joe is green and tan.
Yeah.
Sometimes white.
Solo Sinner, thank you again for the super chat. You guys are awesome for the support. Canada. Yeah, he's been super supportive in the past, and it was helping us out over on Adam's channel as well earlier today. Just some appreciation for the content and convo tonight, guys. Good stuff. Keep on keeping on. Hey man, thank you, Solo Sinner. And to kind of on that note, Alan was also saying, can I just say that he loves how toy focused this show is? Hey man, thank you. I try and switch it up, and I'm glad to know that folks appreciate it. Chris Bouchard again, giving another super chat for $5. Thank you, Chris. He's saying, now Hasbro does a Haslab Avalanche snow tank, I will buy. I need your help. What was the Avalanche? I don't remember that. That one's not standing out. Was that one of yours? One of mine.
That came later.
Oh, we were probably out of it.
We were probably out of it. That might be 90s, but there was if the Avalanche, I believe that there was a I could be wrong, guys, don't kill me, but there was a Cobra snow vehicle.
Yeah.
like a
that
skeezy
was the
thing.
one I had, and I loved that one.
Yeah,
That was the
oh,
one.
that's okay. Yeah, that's way later.
This is
than
the
us.
Avalanche.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's way later. Look, I
This
can
was
tell they're vintage by the logo. There you go.
so was this was oh no, this was not Battle Force 2000. Avalanche was an actual character in Battle
Oh, and
Force
this thing was
2000.
cool though because it shot those little discs. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, like when we were little and things
Yeah, that's
shot
pretty good.
and they brought it
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
God, can you imagine? I wonder if they will get to the point, and I'll be here just as a sort of fan on the outside, just being excited for all the gijoe collectors. If they even go further and do like 90s, this is for you. Anyways, the 90s vehicles, like if they go way down the road and just kind of give us even those later vehicles that I wasn't necessarily into, but other fans are there, and I'm actually super excited to see if that happens.
Well, you know what? You bring up a good point, and you and I have talked about this in other conversations about like now you have like grown-ups who grew up with like the Phantom Menace and think it's great, whereas you and I were kind of like, whatever, right? But it doesn't. Right. Hey, but that doesn't like don't yuck their yum, right? It's like if they love it, they love it. And same thing with like we were talking earlier, and I just saw that Blake was talking about something else. No, I thought we were talking about Tiger Force, but he was referencing something else with the gridiron, the yellow and black. I didn't get that, like by the way.
Oh, there's a gridiron yellow and black. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't even know that existed. But no, but it's like you put 90s vehicles, right? Yeah, I didn't get that. But the 90s vehicles and the 90s versions of G.I. Joe and the 2000s versions of G.I. Joe, it's kind of like there are kids, who like that left an imprint with them. So to your point, as those kids get older, they're adults, they're, middle-aged old guys like me, have like disposable income. It's like, that'll be their thing, right? They're going to get, maybe will they get their Haslab Avalanche? Who knows? But that'd be great if they did, you know what I mean? As long as there's enough people who want that, I think that's awesome.
So I don't get a ton of like sort of like Joe. I don't cover a whole lot of Joe stuff, and so I love it when you're here or when Ken's here, and I get to talk about stuff that I don't actually collect, but I just sort of admire from afar. So I am really curious if anybody's watching on the replay, what vehicles are your like Joe vehicles that were legacy vehicles that need to be brought into classified? Please drop that in the chat. And so while we're here, there are folks already doing that. So Blake is saying he wants the whale. That'll be big. It has to float. If it doesn't, no.
That was one of my favorites. I love that. Remember that? I love that thing.
You brought that to Lola's pool. I remember that, and we remember dropping the depth charges that would just sort of float. Yeah, causing havoc for everybody.
So good.
Yeah, skews in for the whale for sure. This is the one that you're mentioning.
That was the wolf. Yes.
Kind of lost track of the Cobra wolf.
Really cool. Yep.
And had, for my money, the coolest pilot, the driver. He looked like he had like a full balaclava, red with a helmet on top and
fur. Yeah.
He's like, white, so that when he's in the snow, you can't see him, but you know exactly where to aim for the red face. Yeah, the whale, the havoc, and the shark. Those are yours.
Sharks. That's right.
The shark has got to be coming, right? That feels like something they can do. Hasbro can do on the show.
I don't know how how those Hasbro guys make their decisions, right? I mean, it's kind of like they must be not just thinking about, I'm sure they're thinking about space, but they must be thinking about, okay, look, if our average customer, has spent, X amount of dollars per year on our product, therefore, we have to be, we can't just throw it all out there. We got to be, so.
Yeah. Well, so Adam, after, collector after my own heart, loves the weird stuff. I love this kind of stuff. The Cobra Buzzbore. I can maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, that was this one here.
It was a buzzsaw thing, right? It was like a uniwheel buzzsaw thing.
Yeah, the Buzzbore, which I don't think that was the original. I'm not sure. I think that's a 3D printed one.
Right.
Maybe not. And then wait for it. Open image in new tab. The Coastal Defender. Well done, Adam. I don't necessarily think he's kidding, actually, but I could totally see this kind of happening, this kind of thing. Especially now that you have the vamp, right? You just throw this on the back of it and you hitch it.
Wait, we can't see the photo. We can't see the image.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I in the wrong? Oh, duh. You and I are here.
Right.
Burp, derp, derp. Let's get our faces out. Yeah, dude, there's the Coastal Defender.
Dude, yes.
That's
there you go. That's definitely a Deathstroke creation right there.
Yeah, Deathstroke could be coming up.
I think that actually showed up in one of the Marvel comic books. I'm pretty sure it did. That thing.
I mean, it was actually I dug it. It was it was General Grievous's his little like monocycle kind of thing, spiral zone. But a little safer, like fully covered, and so you're good. Right. Maybe this is the one in Japan. I don't know. We've got people shelf presence. What's up, man? A whale would be the size of a coffee table. Yeah, that thing is huge. And so where do you even put that? But again, as we've been saying today, they'll find a way. People will find a way. Skew wants a shark, wants a whale, wants a moray. What's a moray? Was that? No, that's a water moccasin. What was a moray? Was it orange?
The moray was the hydrofoil, I think, wasn't it?
Was that the hydrofoil? I had that. I love that.
The maroon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
that was fantastic. Yeah. And then the Night Raven, which I also had, which was killer. How did I end up with the 2 Cobra planes? And then the space police. Maybe I'm not. Maybe that's later. That's beyond my time.
Maybe.
Brian Brink, yep, you get some trailer toys. They've already done it, right? Didn't they do the big missile launcher?
Yeah.
Oh,
the shark was cool. Shark was very cool
with Deep Six. Yeah. The Cobra maggot. Oh, that's later. I think it was a big brown one, wasn't it? No.
Yeah,
oh no, it was like a tealish. Yes, with the brown.
Very cool driver too. Yeah.
The Rocketeer. He was my Rocketeer. Oh man, I love this. Shout out to Geek Dad Life, Jay, and Toy Galaxy, Secret Galaxy, Dan's podcast. They do a podcast together, which is totally escaping me. But they went through every G.I. Joe wave year by year, and the commentary is fantastic. Of course, folks want the Thunder Machine, the Ice Saber. Ice Saber was pretty stupid. I'll look that up later. Yeah, man. G.I. Jetman. See, he heard us talking about G.I. Joe and he appeared. What's up, man? But here it is right here. With the success of the G.I. Joe past Haslabs, like they're just going to keep going, right? There's no reason to stop. The fan base is there. And again, I don't want to jinx it, but I guess we'll see, right? With each successive Haslab, they'll gauge the market. Right. And with each successive classified wave, I want to throw something out weird as someone who's not in it. So, I get it. If you think my ideas are terrible, I actually want to see them start to do some new things. I would be really curious to see what that creative team could come up with in terms of start small. Give me a small vehicle or something that's completely original. Like they were, kind of delving into, what was that one? I think you got him. He's like orange Viper type thing, but looks like he has almost like a robotic face. It's a recent one. Oh, he's the one with the
I was looking at the show.
The highlight.
No, that was an actual figure. That was an actual figure.
Yes. Oh, that was. What am I mixing? Oh no. I'm sorry. I'm mixing it up with the like tunnel Viper or something. That was
yeah.
That was had like
the brain.
Oh, was it as well?
Yeah, those were all like. Yeah, no, those are all based. I'm trying to think of like what is,
not the brain on his head, that the Night Viper guy that you got. They have 3 of them, but the other one that looks like he's like digging like some kind of purple rock.
Yeah.
See, this is where I'm not.
I think it's what is it's the Energon thing that they're trying to synergize.
Yeah, with Transformers. Yeah, wait, so that was was that an old school figure?
No,
was after our time.
Completely, this is completely original, like new.
Yes. So I'm kind of curious to see something like that. Like they develop, like I'm curious to see what this current team who's in charge of the G.I. Joe license, what kind of wild stuff. Yes, thank you, Ray, and thank you, Stanley. I want to see what they could come up with. We already know what they can do to kind of take the Dragonfly and do some cool new additions, or the cat.
Right.
I'm just kind of curious to see what else they can do, because that's the trick right now, right? You and I were kind of talking about this, I think, with the MCU the other day on chat. They creating new things allows new folks to potentially come in and have that be their, oh, that was my G.I. Joe when they came out with that thing in 2026 that no one else was into. So anyway, man, we've been going long, as we always do. We do this in real life, or we do this on our phones at weird hours of the night, and then we do it occasionally here together on the stream. Thank you for coming through and and hanging out. All of your like bringing visuals for show and tell for the class. That's a mighty collection you have there. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
So you're on the fence with the Snowcat, though. Let's end on there. What are you thinking with the Snowcat?
I'm thinking likely that I will, and for odd reasons. There's that, holding big plastic in my hand, which is always a good feeling. But I actually like those extra tier figures. I think they're really cool. I think that Lady J and that Flint are actually very, very cool. So we'll see. But I also have to fit a phalanx in my life. So there you go.
Have to fit a phalanx. Yeah, no, 100%, man. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Like, clearly folks enjoy your presence and love to see. Here's Ray, like right there. Ted, come on more often, please. He said that the last time. He's like, come back. So thank you all for watching. Hey, for me and the channel, I will say I'm heading back to Japan, folks. So I'll be filming some of that stuff and sharing it. I say that, but I haven't shared much other than with the members what I did last year. But I will. Let's put it out in the universe. But that means I won't be necessarily live. I will be recording something with John and Josh, the Collectible Brothers. I'll be recording something live with Cheney 180 from the Toy Amigos. I have something scheduled with other folks in the community. So look out for that. And just look out for the channel. I may even drop more than one episode pre-recorded while I'm away. I'm gone for like 2 weeks, and then I'll be back here on the 26th. I think I'm going to do that one solo and just sort of share what we ended up doing in Japan. And then the week after that, on August 3rd, it'll be me and Kevin from Toying Around, talking toys and proving to everyone that he loves Filipinos. So that's the news for me and the show. For you, where can folks kind of like follow you and sort of beyond the times where you'll be popping in on the channel?
For now, this IG, Imaginary Action, but I've got something top secret brewing, so I may have to kind of jump in the next few weeks or month with something that I'm about to sort of launch. So more to come.
I love that. I love the tease. You teased that over on Legions Lounge too with Trevor, Bill, and Nate, which was awesome. Still in the works. I know all about it, and I can't say anything, but it's incredibly impressive, just like the other things that he's shown here. So check it out. Zio is following you. Shout out to Zio who jumped in. I didn't get to verbally name this, and Erwin Papa as well, who popped in right around the same time. Another super talented dude out in Long Beach, I want to say. You should check out his art. Anyways, go check him out. Imaginary Action, Ted. Follow him there. Look out for whatever might be coming up, from Ted. So, check him out, and we'll definitely have him back probably before you sort of start sharing that stuff publicly, but definitely when you do, please come back. Yeah. Let's share with the folks what you've got going on.
Thanks, dude. Be safe.
Yeah, man. Thank you for hanging out for 2 hours again. Like, I know that other times you're like, man, these go long. I tend to try and keep it shorter, but we talk too much, man. All right, folks. With
Thanks.
that said, we'll go ahead and end it. That's Ted. That's my brother. I'm Brick something. See you all live in a couple weeks, but look out on the channel. I'm supposed to come over here and play some music, and then at that point, it'll be hard for us to talk. Here it is. Whoa, that zoomed in. Here we go. Thing weird. Wonder if Dad's watching. Dad said he would watch.
Well, he looked tired today. I had to watch Mom today.
Oh, we're still